season continues, and I'm here for it. You're here for it. Let's jump into Google, who is going to report in tandem with Tesla on Wednesday. Going to be exciting. We're going to take a look at its previous reports on earnings, what has happened, gap up, gap down, sideways, and let's get a feel for what potentially can happen with this company. And let's just set the view for what's been transpiring here with Google. And really, while Microsoft has been running hard, NVDA has been running hard, Meta's been pushing, Alphabet, along with Apple, has taken a back seat and has been a bit of a laggard. So there is opportunity for this guy to the upside. And you can see we're quite a ways away from its all-time high at 208.64. Right now, at the time that I'm recording this, we're at 189.86. And so can it push up into that all-time high? Can it fill this gap overhead? It most certainly can. And again, it's been a laggard, so we'll have to see if we get rotation of money out of a Microsoft, out of an NVIDIA into Google, and what that's going to mean for this ticker. And the 1-year forecast, it isn't, there we go. So the max is 250, which is pretty significant in terms of being above where we currently are. The average 203.30, again, which is above where we currently are, and the minimum 160. So there is quite a bit of upside if we look at this from the perspective of analysts. So let's just take a look at where we are now. Again, we are above all the moving averages today. We just got overbought on the RSI. You can see just a glut of support down below. Just all the moving averages are down below, right? But if this is a negative report, there's going to be quite a bit to catch this, give it some support, an area to consolidate, move sideways. And you also have some pretty thick volume nodes here on the VRVP to catch this thing in the event that it would drop. There's support below, right? If it falls, there will be someone to catch it, right? And you can see that it's been struggling. It hasn't moved super fast, but we have been making higher lows on this. We did come down and retest this 100 SMA on the weekly there towards the end of June. And then since then, it's pushed higher, retesting to the 10 and then that 20 EMA, and has continued to push up here today. What is going to happen on this earnings call? Let's take a look in terms of what has happened the last few times they've reported. So here is April, and what did we have here? We had a gap up. Let's measure this out from its close to that upper wick. So we had about a $6.94 move, 4.3%, but you could see that faded, sold back down, eventually retested into the 10, pushed higher, and then was a big drop. Because this closed higher, we're going to classify this as a gap up. All right, because we do our count here on the channel in terms of what has transpired the last few earnings reports. So we did have a minor gap up there in April. If we go back to February, we had a significant gap down. This was after it hit an all-time high, and bang, this thing came down. And then from there, that just started sending this thing rumbling, bumbling, stumbling down through all those moving averages, boom, boom. And this lines up with whenever market weakness came into play with all the tariffs. And let's indicate here, this was a gap down. So one gap up, one gap down. Now let's go back to fall of 2024 right here. So this is October 29th. And what did we get here? We did get a gap up. Let's measure this from its close to that upper wick. $12.71 move, 7.42%. But again, like what happened in April, it couldn't fully hold on to all those gains. It did sell back down into the 10 and then pushed higher, but this still classifies as a gap up. So out of the last three reports, gap up, gap down, gap up. So now let's go back to July of 2024. So 1 year ago when it reported in the summertime. And what did we have here? We had a gap down. So let's measure this guy out down to the bottom of this wick. It was about a $10.47 move, 5.69%. So the last four times we had two gap ups, two gap downs. It's been alternating what it's going to do, but we could see even from the gap ups that it's had for Google, it doesn't hold the gains. It fades, it sells down. So potentially what could happen is if it does gap up, we could see a fade on that. So that could be a short opportunity. And let's just go back one more time. This is April of 2024. And what occurred here, we had a gap up, and that was $18 over 11%. But we see it did fade lower, retested into the 10 and pushed higher. So something that we've just seen from these earnings reports on Google, if it does gap up, it typically fades. In the next few days, it'll sell down into the 10, even the 20, and then push higher. In this case, it continues higher. It's sold down in the previous cases. So really for this one, it's 50-50. This one could go either way. But in terms of this being a laggard and not really moving with the rest of the market, not having the strength of move, what we would look at, or what I'm looking at for the bull case, is we're going to look for this gap to get filled. So I'm going to indicate on here that this is the bull case, and I'm going to put on here, look for fade lower after moving up. So in the event that Google does fill this gap here at 204.21, I'm going to be watching to see if, like it has done historically over the last few earnings reports, if it sells down a little bit, fades into that 10, and then we'll look for a push higher there. So 204.25 will be the bull case here on Google. Now, in terms of the bear case, where is this thing potentially going to fall? Again, we have a glut of moving averages here on Google. And let me just measure this out from the current price where we are. I'll be looking for about a 5 to 8% drop. $16 seems like that's quite a significant move lower. So we'll say a retest of this. I'm going to say it's only a 5% drop. We'll come close to the current point of control, but I'm going to mark out. Let's just come down here to the point of control. We're going to mark this as our bear case. So that's going to be let's just make that 178. So let me mark this. And I'm going to write bear case 178, which would not be terrible for this stock. And if anything, if it would come down here, it'd probably find some support. We do have support here, and then slowly make its way back up. Because again, it has been a laggard, but Google is a major player in the Mag 7 in the market overall. It's not going to stay down here for too long. So there is opportunity for this thing to push. In my opinion, what do I see happening? Again, earnings, it's 50-50. It can go either way. Markets are irrational. It can have an amazing report and they could still gap it down. It could have a terrible report. They can move it higher. But I think Google is due. Again, I'm looking for some of these laggards in the market to start getting moving. And I do think that will be the case for Google. And I'm watching for this gap to get filled up here at 204 and then look for that fade lower. Potentially you could short that on a day trade, and then we'll see it push higher after it retests that 10-day exponential moving average or the 20 exponential moving average. That's what I got for you on Google. What are your thoughts? What is going to happen with Google on earnings? Are they going to move higher? Are they going to move lower? Let me know in the comments. I appreciate your support here of the channel. Tons of earnings previews coming, especially for next week when we have a boatload of the Mag 7 reporting. Thank you so much for your support. Smash that subscribe button and make it a great day.